After the fall of the Roman Empire on September 4th, 476 AD, the papacy in Rome began to take on more and more administrative and civic responsibilities. By the 8th century, the Pope was the largest landowner, thereby effectively becoming the ruler of the entire region around the city of Rome, which led to the creation of the Papal States. Pope Gregory, as we have already learned, organized the music of the church and standardized it by creating Gregorian chant and its notation system in the early 11th century. In the early 11th century, the monk Guido of Arezzo added lines to the original Gregorian notation. He initially used a simple two-line system with a yellow line representing F and a red line for C to help determine pitch more precisely. Later on, this was expanded to the more common four-line staff that Gregorian chant still uses, providing a much clearer system for notating melodies. The addition of staff lines was a significant step towards more precise pitch notation, moving away from a system that relied solely on memory and oral tradition. The notes were called neumes, as we've already discussed in previous lessons. And the chant had free rhythm, so there was no time signature involved to it. The note durations had dots or horizontal lines that are added to imply longer notes. Vertical dashes indicate breath marks, with a double line marking the end of the piece. Before the development of standardized musical notation, melodies were passed down through oral tradition, much like folk songs. Modes provided a theoretical framework to structure and remember these melodies more reliably. The number of modes used by the church expanded over time as well due to the practical evolution of musical practice. The growing complexity of compositions and the influence of secular and folk music helped accelerate this process. The original set of 8 modes used in the Middle Ages was later expanded to 12, before ultimately giving way to the modern major-minor system. The modes were brought into the church music starting in the Middle Ages, with the system being formalized around the 9th century to classify existing Gregorian chants. The original 8 modes were established to help organize music across the Carolingian territories, which is modern-day Europe. Modes are patterns of intervals, just like scales are. The 8 modes are named Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. A good memory device is I don't play loud music at lunch. Here's a quick video to help give a basic understanding of the modes. One of the greatest composers of the medieval period was a woman named Hildegard of Bingen. She was born in 1098 and died in 1179. She was a German Benedictine Mother Superior and active as a writer, a composer, a philosopher, a mystic, a visionary, and as a medical writer and practitioner during the Middle Ages. But she is known as one of the best-known composers of sacred monophony, as well as the most recorded in modern history. She has been considered by a number of scholars to be the founder of scientific natural history in Germany. Here is a beautiful example of her music titled Holy Spirit, the Quickener of Life. The instrument that the man was playing in that video was called a hurdy-gurdy. The hurdy-gurdy was first invented in the 10th century as a large two-person instrument called the organum. It was redesigned to be a smaller and playable instrument played by a single person in the 13th century, which made it more popular for dance music. You may have also noticed a recorder, a harp, and a violin, and a set of bells. Other popular instruments of this period include drums, cymbals, the bagpipe, and the organ. Now let's talk about polyphony. Near the end of the medieval period, polyphony, which means multiple voices, began to emerge. A composer named Leonin of the 12th century is considered the first significant composer of polyphonic music. He was a leader in the Notre Dame school. He authored the Magnus Liberi Organi, the great book of organum. Organum was a style of music written in that time. And he established the foundation of two-part polyphony. Click the link to listen to an example of his music. The next composer is Perotin. He is the successor to Leonin at the school of Notre Dame. He was a master of multi-voice composition. Perotin developed the polyphonic style by introducing 3- and 4-part harmony, creating compositions like the one you are about to hear. And finally, the third composer of this era is Guillaume de Machaut, 14th century, another French writer, a central figure in the Ars Nova period. Machaut was the leading composer of his time in France. His most famous work is the Messe de Notre Dame, one of the earliest known polyphonic settings of the Mass by a single composer. One of the most interesting things of the medieval period was the development of liturgical drama. There was a significant form of theater during this time, roughly from the 10th to the 16th centuries. It began in the Catholic Church and was used to make biblical stories and saints' lives more accessible to a larger illiterate congregation. These dramas, performed by clergy and later by lay actors, began as short embellishments of church services and evolved into more elaborate productions with dialogue, music, and staging. This evolution was a crucial step that paved the way for secular mystery and morality plays that became very popular later on in the period. The most famous of these was the Quem Quaeriste, which is Latin for Whom Do You Seek? It was a reenactment of the resurrection story with the angel and the 3 Marys at Christ's tomb. These liturgical dramas brought a revival of drama to the world and were very important in encouraging the work of Shakespeare and others. The music used in medieval liturgical dramas was mainly plain chant, a type of Gregorian chant which, remember, was monophonic. But in later periods, early forms of polyphony became used in these dramas. The melodies sometimes borrowed directly from services or newly composed music for the plays. Click the link to watch this video on the medieval theater. Well, let's review our study, the important takeaways from this lesson. The composers are listed here: Hildegard of Bingen, Léonin, Peritin, Guillaume de Machon. The instruments: the hurdy-gurdy, the harp, the recorder, lots of recorders, by the way, different sizes, the flute, the violin or the vielle, bells, drums. And the most important technological advancement was the addition of lines in musical notation by Guido d'Arezzo. The social and philosophical and moral influences were the fall of Rome and the ascendancy of the Pope.